Good evening, and tonight we're going to look at the miracles of Jesus based on the Gospel of John. And what we'll be seeing is that John presents his miracles in an order that is somewhat different than the order of the other Gospels. He presents it in such a way that the story leading up to that miracle adds understanding to that particular miracle. So as we look at the Gospel of John, let's remember that this is not a chronological order, just like it would be in Matthew, Mark, or Luke. More so Luke than the others. But John had his message. His message was to present Jesus, the God, Jesus, the man, and all that he presented was that Jesus was God. He wasn't Son of God. He was God the Son. So in his presentations and in these miracles and all that he brings to his gospel message is that this is the Messiah. He is deity, and he is God the Son. And as you study John, you'll see there are many terminologies that he does not use compared to the other gospel writers. And there are many episodes he didn't bring in. He didn't bring in the birth in Bethlehem. He didn't do the wise men. He didn't do the trip to Egypt or anything of Jesus' young life as a youth. And he did not bring in the genealogy. John starts his gospel in the beginning. And his point is that he brings in the beginning to where Jesus, or where God the Son was in the beginning. He was the Word, and he created all things. So as you look at John and you study that gospel, you'll see that his emphasis is on that. So some of the things that he doesn't bring in would be Son of Man, Son of Mary, Joseph, the lineage of Joseph. He wants to present Jesus, Messiah, as God the Son. Not that he's saying the other things are not. His emphasis is on this deity of Jesus, and that he is the one that was waited for. So all that he presents will be focused in that direction. And as we look at today, we're going to look at 7 miracles that John recorded. Some of them are back to back. Some of them have some time frame in between them. In the reading of the Gospels, it seems as if there's a time frame. Some of those that are back to back, there could possibly be as much as 6, 8 months or a year between the recordings of those miracles. So John's emphasis was just to focus on those miracles, and in most cases, a lot of his writing has to do with Jesus' ministry in Judea. Although he touches on the ministry in Galilee, we're going to see that he focuses on Judea because that would be the home place of the Messiah, particularly Jerusalem. And we're going to see a quote that Jesus says that, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown. And I think John sees the Jerusalem and Judea area as that hometown so-called atmosphere, or that hometown place where Jesus was not quickly received. We know in some of the areas in Galilee he was received. He did many miracles, except in his hometown of Nazareth. Not many miracles could be done there, according to some of the other gospel writers. So let's look at these 7 miracles. And we're not going to do a lot of detail on the miracle itself. We are going to see what the miracle represented and how it portrayed the ministry that Jesus was bringing to the people. So our first miracle we're going to look at, it's in, obviously, the Gospel of John. And we're going to go to John chapter 2, and we're going to look at verses 1 through 11. And this will be the water to wine, where he turns the water into wine. See what else I had here. We covered, John starts his gospel as Jesus being in the beginning with God. He's eternal. And the recording of the birth, he doesn't cover those. And when he does a miracle, when he records the miracle, an example would be the one we're going to look at here, where he turns the water to wine. He places this miracle, and we're going to see this, he places this miracle right before Jesus goes into Jerusalem, or sometime before he goes into Jerusalem, where Jesus purges and cleans the temple of all the money changers and those that are selling and buying. And he cleans the temple that way. And what John is creating is an illustration that there's to be an intimate relationship between God's people and their God in the temple, and it should be a intimate relationship like a wedding, like a marriage. And we know that Jesus is spoken of, and we're going to be his bride, and we're going to spend eternity with him in that respect. But what John did, he takes this miracle of turning the water into wine, and as we see, he places it right before Jesus goes to Jerusalem for one of the Passovers and purges the temple. So you can see the symbolism. If he's emphasizing a wedding, the intimate relationship that's connected with a wedding, and then immediately after that, or within a short time, he covers Jesus purging the temple, saying that this is his Father's house. They should not be conducting business there. It should be a time when the people come to the Father's house and have an intimate relationship with him, connected with the wedding. So let's look at the wedding in Cana. And we're going to start right in chapter 2, verse 1. And on the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there. And Jesus also was invited, and his disciples, to the wedding. Just a little quick note there. When you think about it, Jesus was invited. His mother was also there, and they invited his disciples to come. It would lead you to believe that possibly, and there's nothing to support this, it's just speculation. It would lead you to believe that maybe this man and woman who were getting married, or their family, was some way closely related to Mary, Joseph, Jesus, in some respects, that they were, as a family, were invited to this wedding. So let's keep going. And his disciples with him. And when the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what do I have to do with you? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were 6 stone pots set there for the Jewish custom of purification, containing 20 or 30 gallons each. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water," and they filled them up to the brim. Let me stop there a little bit. Now, when I was reading this today, I got to thinking about this. Here they are. There's, let's see, how many pots? 6 stone pots, which would probably be pretty good sized pots, 20 or 30 gallons each. So this is about the size of a small water heater, and they had 6 of them, and he says, "Fill them to the brim." Now, put your thinking on a little bit. They didn't have running water as such. They had to go to the well, fill up buckets, or whatever method they had for getting water. So it may have taken a little bit of a time to fill up those 6 pots, say 30 gallons, 180 some gallons. That's a good bit of water. Just a thought I had looking at this, and it gives you a little more picture of what was taking place. Weddings, they lasted for days. They weren't a short couple-hour reception after the wedding. They were celebrating for days. So here they are, and they run out of wine. There's 6 pots there, empty pots. Jesus says, fill them with water. And they filled them up with water to the brim. And he said to them, draw some out, take it to the head waiter. And they took it to him. And when the head waiter tasted the water, which had become wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, they kind of had a little inside information on this. The head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, every man serves the good wine first, and when men have drunk freely, then that which is poorer, they have kept the good wine until now. What he's saying is, usually you serve the good wine to start with. After people have drank a few glasses, you can bring in the cheaper wine because they're not going to be able to tell the difference. Any of you that ever did any drinking, hopefully not all of you or many of you, but you'll know after the first glass of wine or two or the first glass of beer or two, someone could give you the cheaper wine or beer, and you more than likely would not notice the difference. So anyway, the head waiter, he says, you're serving the best wine last. Usually it's the other way around. And after this, wait a minute, let's see. Every man serves the good wine first, and when men have drunk freely, then that which is poorer. You have kept the good wine until now. This beginning of his signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifest his glory, and his disciples believed in him. And let's see, and then we finish out this chapter or this section. It says, and after he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brothers and disciples, and they stayed there a few days. So here's the picture. Jesus, disciples. Now it indicates his brothers were there. They go to this wedding. Wedding's going on. They're celebrating. They run out of wine. Jesus fills the old water pots, has them filled with water, turns it to wine, and it ends up being a better wine than what was served originally. So the thing that John is bringing out here, he's bringing out, let me see if I got everything written down here. The water pots, the 6 water pots, they symbolized the old covenant and how they contained wine, symbolic of the new covenant. The water pots were something that was used for washing, purification. I don't know that maybe they had some ceremonies they did during the eating and the festive occasion for the wedding, and these pots would have been there for that purpose. So they indicated an old covenant style of old style washing. So Jesus has them empty them, or if there were, and then fills them with water and turns it to wine. So in this instance, what he's doing, he's showing the old covenant, the old pots that would have just been water for washing, are now the new covenant and the new wine, symbolizing the new covenant. And we know that his blood is the blood of the new covenant. So the wine now in those jars, those glass jars, was a superior wine to what had previously been served. So you can see the connotation there. The pots were the old covenant with the washing and the water. The pots now have the wine of the new covenant. And what's pointed out, this new wine is now superior to the old wine that was served earlier, indicating the new covenant. The new covenant that Jesus established through his blood is superior to the old covenant and the sacrifice of animals. And a follow-up with that would be in Hebrews 8:6. But now he has ordained a more excellent ministry, by as much as he is also the mediator of a better covenant, which has been enacted for the better promise. So we can see another symbolism in the pot. Jack Kelly, a quote from him, it says, it symbolizes changing the empty way of man's religion into a living, joyful relationship with the Lord, as demonstrated by the wedding celebration. So the emphasis that John put on this miracle, or what was put on this miracle by these acts of Jesus, was the old covenant, empty pots, and the only thing you used for was water. It washed your hands. It did some cleansing. It did not give you new life. It was the old way. It was not a superior way. Jesus comes. He has water put in the pots. He converts the water to wine. And as we find out, the wine, he not only miracle of turning the water to wine, it was superior wine to what was served before. So we see the new covenant, the covenant in his blood, the wine of the Last Supper, so to speak, is the superior product, if you will, of the old covenant and the water pots that were used. And the author of Hebrews also records the same thing. Okay? Let's look at the next example that we have of a miracle, and it's also obviously in John 2. It'll be John chapter 4. John chapter 4. And I think it's 43 through 54. And this is the healing of the official son. And this was an official that it doesn't necessarily give us his rank or what his position was, but he came. Jesus was in Cana, or still in Galilee, and it could be that he was back to Cana again after spending some time in Capernaum. But here, Jesus is there, John chapter 4, verse 43. And I'm not trying to drag this out too long. Okay, so we're going to start in John chapter 4, verse 43. And after these days, he went forth from there into Galilee, for Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. So that's something we spoke of before, that things were difficult for him in Judea. You know, he was rejected there. Even in Galilee, in his own hometown, he was rejected, but many other places he received. Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. So when he came to Galilee, the Galileans received him, having seen all the things that he did in Jerusalem at the feast, for they themselves also went to the feast. So we're still talking about, you know, the earlier happenings of Jesus in Jerusalem at the first Passover. And so here comes a nobleman. It says a nobleman's son or an official. He came therefore again to Cana, back where he had the first miracle of turning the water to wine, Cana of Galilee, where he made the water into wine, and there was a certain royal official whose son was sick at Capernaum. So now we're doing verse 47. When he heard that Jesus had come out of Judea into Galilee, he went to him and was requesting him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. And so he came from Capernaum to Cana, and he says, come down. Cana and Nazareth in that area is elevated. Capernaum is by the sea, so in effect he would come down. Even if he was going north, he would be coming down. So one of the things you'll pick up as you read the Gospels, when they say come up, come down, they're not necessarily talking north, south, east, or west. They're talking about up on the mountain or down from the mountain or from a high place to a low place. So let's see, 47. When he heard that Jesus had come out of Judea into Galilee, he went to him and requested him to come down and heal his son, for his son was at the point of death. Jesus therefore said to him, unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe. The royal officer official said to him, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your son lives." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him, and he started off. And as he was now going down, his slaves met him, saying that his son was living. So he inquired of them the hour when he began to get better. They said therefore to him, "Yesterday, at the 7th hour, the fever left him." So the father knew that it was at that hour in which Jesus said to him, "Your son lives." And he himself believed, and his whole household. This is again a second sign that Jesus performed when he had come out of Judea into Galilee.